Good evening, everyone. Welcome to join us today for our session, another fruitful session. So, my name is Priyanka Deshmukh. I am the ITU Career Center Manager, and today we have with us our guest Luciano Sewell. He's a CEO and founder of NURG, and he'll be talking about startup culture, his work experience, and entrepreneurship. So, please, everyone, welcome Luciano. Hi, Luciano. We are very happy to have you here with us today, and the floor is all yours.
Awesome. I appreciate it. I I always first of all, let me tell you, I'm a terrible speaker. So just know that if you ever have fear of speaking, you don't actually have to get over it. You just have to do it. So I just wanted to recap because I only believe a few people here Sunday. Like Priyanka said, I am the founder of Energy Inc. Some people actually say nerd. We built the name so that way it could be pronounced that, but the name actually means energy. It's an acronym for nutrition, endurance, rejuvenation equals growth. And I since this is like a smaller group, I'll kind of tell you how I got to the point of founding this company. Um, my mom, her restaurant closed during COVID. Um, and she had spent her like entire life running us around on auditions in Hollywood and doing everything being a mom to four kids in California by herself. So finally got a restaurant, it's booming, COVID happens, shuts down. I spent a lot of time helping her build her brand, build her business. Um, After her restaurant closed a few months later, she was diagnosed with stage 3C colon cancer. Um, that was like a reality check and a culture shock because we always were taught to just like go as hard as possible, do as much as you can while you can, give it 200 300% all the time. So I helped my fiance start her lash business. I helped my brother start his auto business. I helped my mom with her restaurant, and then this happened, and I get this like huge wake up call. So at the time, what we were building was analytics software for businesses to help them become more profitable. How could they translate customer feedback into profitability, inventory, things like that, all the tools to help a business. But what I realized was most people all the time just ignore their health. I'm like notorious for it. We just work, right? Especially I think in the Bay Area more than anywhere else I've been because the culture is so much like go, 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 go. So we transitioned from um, software to products, supplements, and how could we use that as a go-to market strategy to start collecting data on healthcare and the lack thereof in communities. So along the way, I ended up getting a supplier for a huge portion of my inventory. They're publicly traded, multi-billion-dollar company, um, and it's just kind of grown from there. This is not my first time starting a startup. We've done it all from media to, like I said, business technology. But the difference this time versus all of the other times, all of the money I spent, all of the accelerators and incubators, the difference this time is there is a level of conviction behind what I'm doing that I think just translates to people. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that because this is the first time I've actually ever experienced it. I'm not doing anything different. I'm putting up my own money all over again. Um, but I think the belief I have and in it, and the fact that it came from something that was near to me, health, my mom. I've always been into fitness. I've always, I've changed my body makeup multiple times. I went from 140 pounds to about 180 pounds in 1 month at like 4% body fat, right? So I was always like, it was always a thing, but it became very real when my mom, who's never smoked, never drank, completely healthy, got high blood pressure, had high blood pressure, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere got cancer. And if the pandemic wouldn't have happened, she probably would have died in her restaurant. And I'm not trying to bring the mood down, but the point of all this I'm saying is there's a lot of stuff out there about what it means to be an entrepreneur. And I've had an insane journey. I didn't know how to write code, so I took all the classes so I could learn how to write technical documentation, right? What's Ruby on Rails? What's Python? What's this? How do you explain this to a CTO from a business perspective? So that way cost and cash flow makes sense and you're not wasting resources. And from a marketing, I did everything all the time, every time. Trademarks, I did everything. The difference this time is that I'm doing something that I wholeheartedly believe in and I am personally invested in. It's not just like I want to build something. And I think for entrepreneurs, that is the difference. So with energy, you know, the connections that I've gotten and the people that are helping me build this, a friend of mine from high school, he does a lot of the events in New Orleans, the NBA events. They came on board. I mean, it's kind of like becoming this gravitational force because it it's something that I believe in and it's something that I believe matters. Other people might not think it matters. Other people might not think dehydration matters. But once they talk to me, they understand the importance of being hydrated. Um, that's really what entrepreneurship is. I have a friend of mine. He's already raised $190,000. I think he's working on another 500,000 now. I talk to him once a week. He struggles to raise money. It's a product that he's passionate about, but when you hear him talk about it, he talks about it from a technical perspective. Um, and the trap for most people in today's entrepreneurial world is talking about it from a technical perspective. I have a sales and media background, so I'm used to selling things. I think I have a little bit of an advantage. Um, you all have advantages, some of you, because you can write code. But for the people who are in the business vertical, your job is going to be the hardest as an entrepreneur because you're going to be the glue, right? So when you're thinking about becoming an entrepreneur and starting a business and doing all these things and, you know, maybe walking away from a job and putting your own money into a business, you have to, one, think about the passion behind what you're doing. Two, you have to think about your skill set and what role it plays as a founder or CEO, right? It used to be in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s, the person that was the entrepreneur was the person with the business plan. In the 90s, it became the person, well, the late 80s, early 90s, early 2000s, it became the people who can write the code, the tech people. The CTOs were the founders. Today, there are no rules about who can start a company and why. Because the ecosystem now is cooperation versus like you know predator, like, you know what I mean? A lot of companies back in the day, they just like completely spend money on making sure that companies couldn't get trademarks. That's not really the case anymore. um so as a founder, as an entrepreneur, I don't care if it's like traditional business, I don't care if it's a high growth startup. If you're going to do it, don't waste your time doing it because you think it's investable. I've done that. And you will spend years. I spent my first time starting a company was 2010. We raised like $50,000 in a week through friends and family, right? Uh, didn't work because we were doing things to be investable. I work with some guys. They spent $500,000 of their own money on their own product. They have one customer in 4 years. they they built something because they thought it was investable. It's another delivery app. Um, that that just doesn't work. Like it doesn't work because anybody has this program that you're in right now. If nobody had an idea, not a single person had an idea, and you all came together to come up with an idea to make it investable, you'd get a check because you check all the boxes. You have business people, you have tech people, you have advisors, you have all of that stuff. And 4 years ago, that was pretty much all you needed. Um, Evernote was done that way. It was a group of guys that worked for Microsoft, and they sat down in a room and said, "What can we build?" Dropbox. I was on a call with the CEO of Dropbox. He didn't build Dropbox. He bought a company that had some IP, and they ran out of money. And it turned out one of those intellectual properties was Dropbox. You can you can come together to build anything. You can raise money to build anything. It's really not complicated. What you have to ask yourself, and of all the accelerators I've been and all the places that I've been, is what do you really want? Like, I am infinitely more fulfilled bootstrapping my supplement company. Keep in mind, um, I have a supplement company, and then I we bought an insurance company to as an asset to the supplement company. What we've spent on trademarks, formula development, everything over the last 3 months, there was a group of events in June that I just couldn't afford to make. It was a circuit, and the investment circuit was $5,000 in investment. They were going to replace Gatorade at this college development circuit with my company. I couldn't afford it. It was 20 grand, right? Those are the decisions you make when you're an entrepreneur. Was the 20 grand worth more to go do these marketing things with not having the right at the time? We were going to do supplement containers. Turns out that supplement packets were better because the middle of the formula people need to take with them. That was part of the $20,000 we spent on research. um, Turns out that some of the ingredients in the original formula were contradictory with the middle formula, right? So that was part of the 20,000 we did on research. um, there was ingredients in the night formula that would register on an athlete's test if they were tested for banned substances. The substance is not banned, but it would give you the same markers. That's what this process is when you're really out there doing it. You have to make decisions that, if you're self-funded or you have investors, are impactful. Doesn't matter that those type of decisions don't matter if you're a technical founder, a sales founder, a product founder. Doesn't really matter. But when you are building your own thing, you have to be able to think through this. And it's harder when you're not passionate about it, because when you're not passionate about it, the decision will become what's going to get me to money faster. And oftentimes that is actually the wrong decision. You won't hear this on the you on you. I was gonna say the YouTube. I'm getting too old. You won't hear this on YouTube. You won't hear this in the accelerator, because that ecosystem is designed to just rush, 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 rush. But once I started slowing down and taking my time and understanding what it meant to be a founder, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what it meant to build a company. Once I just slowed down and said, okay, if I'm going to do this time, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to not make decisions because somebody else has an input, because this is my passion project. Other things, if you were an expert in blockchain technology and I was building blockchain back in the day, I 100% take your decision, and that's what we're going to do. So that's my thing about being an entrepreneur. Step one, I think I said this Sunday, when people were trying to pick projects, like, just don't do it. Like, there's you you can get more money, you can't get more time, and you can't get back the time that you spend being unhappy because you made wrong decisions. Now, it's going to be tough regardless, no matter what you do. I've gotten myself, because I am an entrepreneur, to the point where my income is pretty passive, so it makes it a little bit easier for me. But that was years worth of work. For you all that are in college, you're just getting started, right? You are where I was in 2012 when I moved to the Bay Area, right? Like, what is the best thing to do? Of course, get a job. Of course, make money. You got to eat. You got to be, semi healthy. You can't be super stressed out. And then start working on figuring out what is it that drives you. Like, is it that you want to build some cool, just insane futuristic technology, right? Is it that you want to change the world? There's a thing on the UN called impact goals, and they have like these major categories of um, how the startup ecosystem can change the world if they were to focus on certain things. So, like, I focus on clean water, right? Because we're hydrating people. And in certain countries in Africa, I could ship supplements there all day long. But if they don't have clean water to mix it in, we have a real problem. So when you're passionate about something, you start to look at all the ways you can change the world. And I think that level of belief in, like, hey, this is the thing that's going to leave my mark and change the world. It becomes attractive, and it becomes like a gravitation. And so I've had two multi-billion dollar companies tell me, we're not going to give you money, but we will make your product inventory and infrastructure so solid that you will never have to worry about the cost of product. Three, the sports side of my product is a lot of EAAs and BCAAs, so amino acids. I'm fully backed. Can walk into a warehouse, pick what I need, do all the research. The natural ingredients, I'm fully backed. I can test this, test that. The packaging, I'm fully backed. I have not gotten a single dime. Sports marketing, fully backed. Sports marketing cost me 2% equity. Meanwhile, a year ago, I gave a CTO 30% for the product that we were trying to build. And when he left, he forgot to unlock the domain. Now we can't get into it, right? So you'll learn along the way that the money is not as important as people make it seem. And oftentimes, venture capital is marketing for a startup to get more customers. So that's my nutshell on being an entrepreneur. It's not easy. There have been times where I'm telling you, it has been rough. Um, I'm engaged now. I got a kid on the way. My fiance wants to quit her job, right? She has a business. She does permanent makeup, lashes, all of that stuff, beauty. Absolutely loves it, but she doesn't want to have to go to her regular job anymore. Those are decisions that have to take into account. So it's like, you can't I can't afford to pay when I'm paying staff in this insurance agency and now new staff over here. We might not be able to do the marketing every month. Those are the type of decisions that you make as an entrepreneur when you're self-funded. And it doesn't really change when you're funded by a venture capital or anything like that. It's all about, okay, how do I prioritize? How do I make the best decision for the people who have decided to invest themselves, technical people, um, business people, marketing people? When you're a startup and you're an entrepreneur, a lot of those people are working for nothing, very little money in the beginning. How do I make the decisions for them? And again, when you're not passionate about it, you usually make the decisions based on the dollar. And when you are passionate, you're actually more likely to be able to tell somebody no. So when you're doing this, if you do really want to be an entrepreneur and you want to go for it, you're going to read a ton of books. You guys, you're students, you already know how to do that. I went to college for like 2 semesters, right? Like, I didn't completely was like, okay, college was not for me. I went to school to be an English teacher out of high school. So clearly it took me a long time to figure this stuff out. We're talking 15, 16 years of doing it, as an entrepreneur. Um, for you all, I was talking to my mom and my brothers, and I said, if we would have been born and raised in the Bay Area, it would have been a completely different outcome. Growing up in Southern California in that fast-paced entertainment environment, we didn't even like some of this stuff wasn't even on my radar. So if I can learn it in the course of, I won't even say 10 years, because 2012 is when I moved to the Bay Area. I didn't actually get serious about startups until 2016. So we're talking in 6 years, I went from virtually nothing other than an idea once to now a company that's backed by publicly traded billion-dollar companies, not financially, but product and inventory. So, and I don't have the foundation that you all have, right? Like I don't have college degree. I'm not pedigree. Um, I don't I don't come from investment circles. I don't come from a lot of money. I don't come from any of that. I just got to the Bay Area. I got focused and I put my head down to learn the ecosystem. And then finally, after all of that work, found something that I really believed in. So that's it in a nutshell. If you do it every day, I spend hours and hours and hours at this every day, working on speaking, working on presentation. I probably spent $5,000 or more over the last few years on Udemy courses. Okay, I didn't have a graphic designer. I'm going to learn graphic design. I didn't know how to code. So I'm going to take coding classes, low code classes. I'm going to watch all of these videos on how to use Bubble and Webflow and Shopify. So that way I'm not ever dependent on a CTO again, and I can build a product and get it started. I'm going to learn how to write technical documentation for JavaScript, for Ruby, for Python. So that way, when I do get a high quality CTO, everything's already ready, right? I'm going to learn how to do business finance, spreadsheets, projections, revenue, investment decks. So we're talking about like the self-education that I put in has been ridiculous. Um, Day and night, all the time, going to every event, every conference, not necessarily about my company, but okay, I, the Netflix chief marketing officer is going to be speaking here for an hour. I'm going to it and I'm going to take like hella notes. Um, you know, Goldman Sachs is having a conference here about this. I'm going. Okay. I want to take super notes. So that way I can just completely round out my skill set. I don't need to be the best at everything, but if I can't communicate with the CFO, how am I going to lead them? If I can't communicate with the CTO, how am I going to lead them? If I can't take investors, advisors, and board members and their objectives and break that down into actionable intel and insights to be able to hand off to web developers, business planners, bookkeepers, accountants, and the whole gamut of people, how am I ever going to be effective at an entrepreneur? I worked with small businesses. What's the difference between why a small business fails and why a big business fails? What does it look like at a multi-billion dollar company? It got to the point where I didn't take a job over the last 6 years if it wasn't related to what I was currently working on at the time. I took internships unpaid. Um, I took an internship at a retail knife company because they had insane marketing. Like it's just knives, right? Like it's just knives. But I took that internship because I was hungry to learn how to be good at it. I paid LegalZoom multiple times, $600 a time to file a trademark. And every time I was asking them questions. Okay, what does this mean? What does this mean? Now I don't need LegalZoom to file a trademark. Say this last run of trademarks, I paid for them all. I did it myself because I did it all. And after LegalZoom, I made sure that LegalZoom wasn't the point of contact for the patent and trademark office. They had to call me. So you'll learn these things once you go out and do it. But again, it's 30 minutes, so I want to leave time for questions or whatever. All of this, the only thing that I regret is when I was passionate coming up about film and entertainment and music, I wish I would have built my company around those things. Now, no regrets because, it got me to this point, but the difference about doing something that I love testing these products. I love talking about these products. I love handing out samples. I love doing research with vegan people on what they would eat and what their diet is like and what their hydration is like. I love doing it with people who are not fit, are unhealthy. I love, looking at lab results and all of these things because I'm passionate about it. And it just makes it so much simpler and so much easier because there's no pressure. Like it's like that quote, like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. Like I used to think that was the dumbest, stupidest, most cliche. It's not. It's very real. So if you're gonna do it, first of all, just do it. But my advice to you is figure out what's going to motivate you, that you're passionate about, because when the days get long and it gets hard and you've run out of money and you got to figure out how to keep it going, you're not going to do it for something that you did just because it seemed investable. Like, seriously, we don't need another delivery app, like, at all. We need people who are innovators that want to build things to change the world, and make it better for everybody. And the skill set that you all are getting, you are the people who are either going to go out and do it for yourselves or do it for somebody else. Nothing right or wrong with about it either way. There are people at Google who, as good as my supplement company will be, there are some people at Google who will make more money and be more impactful than I could ever be. And they're not even like an executive. So just keep that in mind, whether it's entrepreneurship or a job, because at the end of the day, even when you have a job, you're really betting on yourself. A company can fire you tomorrow. Um, Pick the thing that you believe in. So that's my 2 cents on entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Luciano. Thank you for sharing your experience and journey with us. That
No, you're
was
welcome.
very motivating and powerful talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if anyone have any question and want to comment on it, please, the floor is open. And we have Dr. Mamoon with us. Professor, would you like to share your thought with us? Um, okay. So, anyone have any questions? Okay. I have one question, Luciano.
Yes.
So, how do you motivate yourself in your low point, like in your rough times?
Uh, I play video games, and get my
Oh,
mind off of it. I'm not gonna lie. I play, like, I'll go play Destiny or Madden. Sometimes, when it's like really, really tough, you have to figure out, is it tough because you've been staring at this problem too long, or is it tough because it's tough? And like the outside world is tough. Like, my life is, there's some stuff happening in my life. And depending on what that answer is, I just tell myself, like, okay, what are you doing it for? Right? Like, sometimes you got to just remind yourself, like, what are you doing it for? This is the thing that's going to change my family's legacy. It's going to provide a life for my child. It's ultimately going to help people. And if I'm right, and if we get this done, not only are we going to figure out hydration science and all that, but we really can start to look at building clean water projects. So I think the bigger pictures, the why behind the reason that you do things is the number one way. And then again, I'm telling you, I take a lot of breaks. I will hard stop, put it down, and I won't touch it for 3 days, because I've learned that when I'm stressed out and I'm overthinking it, I'll make mistakes. Like, uh, we were supposed to have a photo shoot last week, and I had so many things going on that I sent the designer the wrong size bag templates. So I sent him 6x6x4 bags. Um, that's like the size of a packet of oatmeal. It was supposed to hold 24 pouches. So, like, I was so stressed out, and, the news of that there's a baby on the way, that this is happening. I had to put it down. So I will walk away from it, take my dog out, spend time with my family, and just reset and remind myself why I'm doing it.
thank you, Luciano. That was a very perfect answer. And congratulations for the baby.
Oh, thank you. I'm actually really excited. It's a boy, so everybody
Oh
thought it was
wow!
gonna be a girl. So I'm super excited. I get to be I got all kind of people been buying me dad stuff for Father's Day next week, so I'm excited.
Wow, so nice.
Congrats, Luciano.
Thank you.
Okay, so um, if if we don't have any questions, so we can end now.
Yeah, please, if you all have questions, ask them. I think it's, very valuable for you to, pick my brain because I've I've wasted a lot of money doing this. I spent a lot of money and I've made every possible mistake you can think of building a company. So if you have questions, please ask them.
Sorry, guys, I was muted. Thank you so much for Luciano. Thank you so much for joining us. This was very, very informative, and thanks a lot for sharing the experience. Guys, this is Mamoun speaking. Sorry, you called me, and I was just in the middle of finding where Google Meet is. I have almost 1,000 tabs on the background with my Google. It's a very bad interface to be integrated to the browser.
No
So,
problem, Professor. Thank you so
yeah,
much for joining us today.
yeah. No, I wanted to hear Luciano. I was impressed. We had a great talk on Sunday with our capstone, and I hope this will be an ongoing relation, Luciano. And I hope we meet in person and get to do things together and learn. So that's outstanding. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm definitely excited. It looks like Bhupinder has her hand up too, so I want to make sure that I don't skip over it. But I am definitely excited to be a part of what you all are working on. I think it's a huge opportunity for everybody.
Yeah.
We have Bhabander, you can ask what we were discussing. We were just talking about Luciano, so go ahead. I think he has much more than one idea, so go ahead.
Yeah, Professor, I did ask him about the project earlier on. I have a different question now. Luciano, as you said, like you completely disconnect when you have to motivate yourself and you need to take your time off. However, as an entrepreneur, I believe decision making is one of the biggest thing one has to do. How do you really, you know, target your decision making when you have various options, like how do you decide on things? My question.
Yeah, so that's actually it's actually a very good question. And I'm gonna answer that in two parts. So if we're talking about decision making, I am very planned out. So, and some people's planning is actually procrastination, but whenever I'm doing anything, I try to think about all of the possible outcomes before I get there. So, for example, with the supplements, right? There were four key things that we had to think about: strength of the product, versus two. Let's just make it simple: strength of the product versus ingredients and taste, right? So in order to get a strong product, we needed to have really disgusting ingredients and then add sugar and a bunch of artificial flavors. I thought strength of the product was the most important thing. So we did it. It was not. The most important thing was artificial ingredients, low carb, low sugar, not strength of the product. So some things, as much as you try to make decisions, you will only get the result from making any decision and moving forward. So the first part of your question is, don't overthink the decision process, right? There's nothing that you can pretty much do as an entrepreneur that's an A or B testing decision situation that's going to completely derail you if you understand that, okay, all I have to do is know both potential outcomes. So strength of the product versus ingredients, they were going to lead me to the same point of a new formula anyway. That is how I make my decisions. I remove anything that takes me away from the next step. For example, the next step in this was product testing. So with the marketing, like I said before, the marketing versus the formula. We started to test the product, and I knew that no matter what, the last step was marketing at scale. So it didn't matter what anybody said to me, because when you're dealing with the type of okay, we have things like rhodiola, the mushroom that helps you focus. Our original formula, the way we had it, it had it at night, right? So we were trying to see, is it possible to have somebody clear their head at night with this formula, but then it would keep them up. All of those things, we knew that, okay, at the end of the day, all of those decisions in that bucket were more important than the decision of should we market first, like for sales, or spend the money testing the formula. So like if you think about like a scale, right? And you say, okay, I can either do A or B. And A is, you know, marketing and sales, and B is formula testing. You just start to put stones in each thing, and whatever weighs it down more is what you do. I don't overthink anything. I'm well structured, I'm well planned, but I'm super, super flexible. And I make sure that everything I do is just a different path to the same point. And when you start operating that way, I'll make it simple, right? Like if your goal is $1 million in sales and you want to do that by December, and you have 6 things that you need to do to get to that $1 million in sales, which one is the one you could do in November, right? If the thing that you need to do to get to $1 million in sales is get a UPC code for your product, that's the thing that you can do anytime, right? It doesn't take long to get a UPC. So time is a consideration for me. Speed, what can I do fast, right? Like when I say time, I mean time it takes, you know, for that to be done. For example, these bags, right? They have a 3-week turnaround time for the first batch. I cannot do anything from this point on until I get these bags. I can't have a photo shoot. I should have done that before I prioritized the formula, technically, but the formula has to go on the back of the bags. So no matter how I weighed all of these decisions, the most important thing was getting the formula right. As you start to do this and you realize what your business plan is, we need to do X, 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 X. I always start with my objective and my key results, right? My overall objectives, and then you just break it down into smaller bite-sized steps. Once you start doing that and you have that overarching picture, 90% of the stuff that you need to do will line itself up. What happens is you just have to act, like take action and move through it. You cannot really get this stuff wrong unless you're building like a serious medical device. I'm not kidding. Or a battery at Tesla that has the potential to explode. The majority of this stuff, there's no like super formula to it. Stick to your plan, stick to your goals. What can you accomplish first? What can you accomplish based on your budget? That's a big one. So I just prioritize based on like, where am I at right now and what can I do right now? If it doesn't cost me anything to do it, then I knock it all off my list. If it costs me something, then I weigh the outcomes based on the cost. But again, as an entrepreneur, 90% of this is you have a plan, you have a vision, you have to trust your instincts.
Thank you, Luciano. That's very insightful.
You're welcome.
Yeah. One last thing, Luciano, I'd like to hear from you. I joined a little bit late. What one of the biggest challenge is the IP, working especially with partner. They end up, arguing about IP and nobody do anything until somebody get it done. So what's your? I know you said few things maybe, or mentioned the company that take care of IP. So what's your experience? How do you protect your ideas?
So my very first venture into startup world, in 2010, we had a company called the Pocketbook. This was my first experience. So this is like the most important thing that I learned early on. It was called the Pocketbook. We registered the trademark and the domain as a social network for people to interact and discuss finance. Facebook owned all of the trademark rights for the and book. So remember, their domain was the Facebook. They owned the trademark rights for the blank book for social networks and interaction. We got sued. I lost all of my investment capital. Couldn't raise another dime. I've had this happen multiple times. I've actually seen founders as recent as last year doing an app. Them and their partner were arguing about IP in front of a venture capital firm. The venture capital firm invested in somebody else who has a very similar company, worse product, very similar company, and helped them balloon. They're now the fitness app for the Golden State Warriors. When you're talking about IP, the first thing is like I am like paranoid about my intellectual property. In pitch deck, part of the reason why it's hard for me to raise money is because I leave stuff out. People will take it. That's rule number one. People will take your intellectual property. I had a CTO at a company. What we worked on, he literally brought IP from another company that he had built with partners, and he was like, as long as it's not this, we can use it because they did their trademarks wrong. People do this all the time. If it's you and a team member, like you guys are founding this together, first thing is before you share anything, get all your documentation in place. Only 3 people involved in my company know who my primary supplier is. Only 3 people. They all have NDAs. They all have agreements in place. I track everything they do. I am very close to the chest about my formula. I spent probably 3 months learning how to write supplement fact sheets so we could disguise ingredients. What ingredients could just be listed in natural flavors? Your IP is all you have at the end of the day. Now, if it's 2 people building something together, the understanding has to be that we must protect each other first and foremost. I think that's where a lot of co-founded companies make the mistake. Um, we have to protect you and I because the resources that Google and Facebook and Apple, they could do it overnight. So if we don't protect each other first, we can bicker, we can argue, we can debate about it. Once it's there, no problem. Who really owns what? But I make sure I don't bring anybody on board in my company without proper documentation. Meaning, like if they're equity only, I have specific agreements for equity only. If they're contractors, I have specific agreements. If they're interns, for example, Anjit that's working on the grant, he's not going to get the IP. I specifically told him we will do this in accordance to making sure that you do well on your project. Our grant needs to be done by November. So let's get moving so we can make sure that you can get your project requirements laid out. We can do everything. And over time, as he becomes, someone that we spend time together, then it's like, okay, if you would like, and you would like to sign this, I'll show you the IP. So after your program, you can continue on when we start implementing the actual science from the other university. You have to put those things in place to protect yourself. And you also have to protect other people because you can, as an entrepreneur, you can actually be the reason somebody doesn't get a job. That was the hard realization when we were working on a media technology company called Core TV. And I brought over somebody from Sony. He was a VP. He was responsible for like $2 billion worth of content distribution at Sony. And I brought him over and we didn't have the right documentation. And it almost stopped him from getting another job once we sold off everything we had. So you have to be very diligent about how you bring people into your intellectual property to protect yourself, to protect your idea. Poor man patents don't work. Don't file trademarks. I mean, don't file patents. A lot of people think like, oh, the best thing to do is patent. The majority of Intel's stuff for their chips is internal business practices. Don't rush to file a patent, because once it's publicly disclosed, these teams have entire teams about seeing if your patent infringes upon something that they do, and you're no longer protected. So keep it as close to the chest as possible. And again, what we're building here is an insane healthcare preventative medicine app. We're starting out as a supplement company for athletes for a reason. So you just have to really break it down to what is that minimum viable product that I can get into market to start building brand recognition, traction, and then follow your trademarks, your name, trademarks, your domain, all of that stuff. But anything patent wise, I wouldn't even file it. I'd go get it notarized. I would put it in an envelope and I'd seal it. And then once we're a little bit further along, you file the patents and the big stuff when you have the resources, because most of these companies will just tie you up in court until you run out of money. And I went through that very early on. I don't know if that actually answers your question, by the way.
Thank you, Luciano.
You're welcome.
So, if we don't have any more questions, it's 5:56. Okay, we can end now if we don't have any more questions. Okay, I think we don't have any more questions. Thank you so much, Luciano, for coming today, and thank you everyone for joining.
Oh, thank you for having me. I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, it was a very fruitful session.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And Pinder, please email me so we can go over some stuff, and then we can figure out what you would like to do for your project.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, all. Good night.
Thank you. Okay.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.